That's it, my turn. So I graduated here, and it's a pleasure to be back on campus. It looks very different than I was here. I graduated here in 1970, which means that I was a student here 50 years ago. And I was going to tell you about how it has changed, but that's stupid. I mean, what's the difference? You're here now looking at what's here. You don't want to hear that there were never any buildings here. So, not only that, you weren't born when I was here, and in many cases out there, your parents weren't born when I was here. So we're going to pass on that. And I'm going to talk about, just briefly, that thing which connects everybody who ever went to Harpur College, everybody who ever went to the State University of New York at Binghamton, and everybody who now is at Binghamton University. And that, of course, is the spiedie. Right? So when I was here, the spiedies were made of lamb, and now they're mostly made of chicken, and they're marinated in the same marinade that they've had for 100 years, and they're served on soft white Italian bread, and everybody knows about these. About a week ago, I passed the last bit of spiedie that I ate 40 years ago. They will stay in your colon for the rest of your lives. I'm going to dump this. I'm going to put on the Binghamton hat. Yeah. I mean, I went here, right? I can do this. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about academics to you, not highfalutin academics, but real academics. I wanted to tell you about two courses that I really needed to pass, had to pass these courses. One was in high school, and it was driver's ed. And I had to pass that. I was the youngest person in my high school. I graduated at 16. On Long Island in those days, if you took a driver's ed course from the school, you could drive at 17. If I don't pass driver's ed, I don't drive till my sophomore year of college, which is social death. Death. So I passed. That was very important to me. The second course, and probably more important, was right here, then at Harpur College. I came in under a catalog where you had to have 2 laboratory sciences. 2. I was an English major. English majors are all alike. We are not quite as pretentious as philosophy majors, but very, very close. We think we're smarter than everybody. We sit in dark rooms and we read books, and we think we're smarter than you and you and you and you and your parents. We're the smartest people in the world. English majors, that's how it works. Because we can use, words like foreshadowing, and we can use phrases like thematic currents. But when it comes to science and math, we're not that good. So one of the courses I could take as a lab science was physics. That was impossible. There's a rule in my house which goes, you didn't tell me there was math, so we're not taking that. I can't take college chemistry. I failed high school chemistry. I narrowly passed high school biology. I don't want to take that. That leaves me with geology, which in those days we called rocks, and psychology. I signed up for rocks. After 3 weeks, we had our first test. I got about a 30, and I bailed out. I dropped. This leaves me with psych. So I take Psych 111, and I pass Psych 111, and I don't like it. I mean, I don't want to take Psych 112. It's boring. I don't want to do it. So I wait and I wait and I wait. I go through the second half of my freshman year, and then my sophomore year and my junior year, and now I'm in my senior year, and I need a second science. They did not change the catalog. I've got to have a second science. I'm not alone in this. I've got a friend, George, and another guy we know, Arnie. George has no second science. He's a history major. Arnie appeared to be studying to get by in a minimum security prison after he was a white-collar criminal, So like manna from heaven, in our second term, there's a course that shows up, and the course is called Biology for Non-Science Majors, very specifically non-science majors. So we say, okay, we're going to take that because we're going to be next to people like us. We're going to English students, poli-sci students, accounting students, just a bunch of idiots who can't take science. We've waited a long time. We're going to take it. We're going to pass it. So we go to the class. There's 100 people who sign up. That's a lot of people. The teacher's name is Dr. Schellig Hackett. That's her last name. She was hyphenated long before it was vogue to be hyphenated. Dr. Schellig Hackett. I've forgotten her first name, but she's gone. Don't worry. And she stands up there on the first day of the lecture hall, and she says this. She says, look it, this is biology for non-science majors. If you're a science major, get out of here. You can't use this on your resume. And when I went to Harpur College, Everybody came in as pre-med, everybody. And what would happen was they'd take the first test in organic chemistry, they'd fail. They'd get on the phone, they'd say, Mom, Dad, if you want me to be a doctor, I got to transfer to Queens or Brooklyn. I can't cut it here. So she says, you can't use it. It's not for you. Please leave. And then she says, give me a show of hands. How many science majors? 100 people in the class. 97 hands. I look at George, I look at Arnie, we're screwed. They leave. They leave. They leave me there alone. I'm the only non-science major in this biology class. I go for about a week, and I stop. And the reason I stop is, again, I'm an English major. And English majors, we don't go to class unless we have an English professor, and they love to do this, who you can argue with. They love to stand up and argue with you. You love to stand up and argue with them. You get very chesty about yourself. You're 18, 19, 20 years old. You're yelling at some guy who's got 83 degrees. And that's fun for English majors. What are you going to do in biology? You're going to argue about the skeletal system of a frog? There's no nuance to that. It doesn't work. So I stopped going. I'm just going to digress for a second and talk about science here right now. And I'm going to talk about Harvey Stenger, who's my good friend. I asked Harvey, by the way, Harvey has a degree, a doctorate degree, not the phony baloney doctorate I have, a real doctorate. He's got a degree in chemical engineering at MIT. That's MIT. They're the smartest people in the country. It's not like Harvard, where if your great-grandfather went, you're a legacy. No, MIT is the smartest people in the country. He's an actual scientist. So a few years back, I said, Harvey, this is a great academic institution. How can we get to the point here where we are thought of like the University of Virginia, like the University of Michigan, like Cal Berkeley, as one of the great public institutions in the country? And he said, actually, it has to do with graduate programs. You have to build up your graduate programs. And he said, and I want to start a school of pharmacology and build some buildings. And I want computer science, and I want to build buildings. And everything he said ended in ology and science. And all the buildings were for ologists and scientists. And I said, what about English majors? And he said, English majors? You sit in a dark room and read books. We're not building you anything. So I said, thanks. I'm not contributing anything anymore either. So to get back to biology for non-science majors, I show up with about a week to go, and I figure I've got to show up. I got to see where the class is. And on the day that I show up in this big lecture hall, there are a lot of tables. And each table has something on it, and students are walking around with books, you know, exam books in their hands, and they're looking and they're writing. And I say to somebody, what is this? And he said, oh, this is the lab practical. And I said, well, the first day I was here, Dr. Shellick Hackett said that labs would be optional. So I didn't go. And he said, well, this counts 40% of your grade. I went, oh, it's not good. I picked up the book, I walked around, I handed it in, I got a 0. That's 40% of my grade. It's going to be hard to pass. I'm running 0. I call up Dr. Shellick Hackett and I say, could I chat with you? And she said, sure. And I come in and I say, we got to work a deal here. You don't want me to flunk. I mean, if I flunk, I'm going to go work at the Dunkin' Donuts on Reno Boulevard for the rest of my life. I'm running about a 3-something in English. I'm a solid B student. We've got to be able to work something out here. And I say, do you have a lawn? I'll mow your lawn. Do you have a car? Wash your car. She said, you got a 0 on your lab practical. I said, I had a bad day. She said, what do you think a good day would have looked like? I said, maybe 20, 25. I said, help me out. What do I have to do to pass this course? She said, you've got to get a 65. And I said, 55? She said, no, 65. I went home that night. I opened the book. We had real books then. I don't know if you have virtual books or real books. We bought our books. I bought the book. I opened it. The binding cracked. It was exciting. I took out a yellow highlighter because I owned the book. I started highlighting. And then, after about a week, I had read the whole book and I had outlined it on yellow legal paper, which I use on the PTI show, the same yellow legal paper for the last 50 years. It was about 30 pages long, and I carried it around with me, and I memorized it, just like I've memorized this talk. I memorized it. You could see me at night in the the basements of Bingham Hall and Broome Hall and Delaware Hall, if they're still here, memorizing this outline. I felt I had one shot. If the test was about the book, I felt I had a chance to pass. If it was about our lectures, it's over. I'm done. I'm at the Dunkin' Donuts. See ya. Would you like more coffee with that? I got lucky. It was about the book. I got a 71 and I passed. And I had said to her in our negotiations, I said, look, I'm not going to pollute your scientific gene pool. I'm never going to go to another science course, ever. Don't worry about it. I'll be so unscientific, I'll be a druid. No, I'm not going to do it. Just let me get out of here. And indeed, I never went to another science course. I don't even watch Bill Nye the Science Guy. Don't do it. I got a job, the only job I ever wanted, sports writer at a newspaper. I started at Newsday. I went from Newsday to the New York Times. I went from the New York Times to the Washington Post. About 20 years ago, somebody said, would you like to do radio? We'll throw a lot of money at you. I said, sure, I can catch. After that, they said, we'd like you to be on TV. I said, like this? Really? And they said, yeah. Will you throw a lot of money at me? Yeah, I can still catch. And I've had what would be considered a successful career, and now you even gave me, I'm a doctor of letters now, and it's odd because I don't even know that I can go in order with all 22 letters in the alphabet. As a joke, I know there are 24. And so I told Harvey this story about Dr. Shelley Hackett and biology for non-science majors. And he said, that's fine. Tony, tell the story, but at the end, say something uplifting. Say something optimistic to our students who have just graduated. Tell them that they can have success. Tell them that they can have your job. And I said, they can't have my job. And I said, they can't have your job. Stop. Just give them something optimistic. And in fact, people come up to me every once in a while and they look at me and they think, well, they don't even think, they say, you are so old. You're so old, surely you've learned something. Surely there's some bit of wisdom you can pass along to us. You can help us with success. Surely there's something important out there. And I thought about it for a while, and it's basically contained in this question. Do you have rich parents? Do you have rich parents? I did not, but my kids do. If you have rich parents, you can do anything. And if not, and I love this school, as great as this school is, with the degree you're going to get, you're still going to work for the Cornell kids. Congratulations.